bunch of people have been coming in and asking me about a video. They've been asking me about a video that Tiggleton made, actually, and saying, what do you think? What are your settings? It's a settings video. They say, hey, what are your settings, Bob? And I tell everyone, well, I play on Ultra. Well, and they're like, well, Tiggleton just put out this video talking about his settings. What do you think about it? So I think we're going to watch it. Tiggleton revealed his settings. These are the settings that everyone's been searching for and trying to figure out for the last, I don't know, 2 to 3 years, maybe even longer. Oh my gosh. I'm actually interested. I want to know what the settings are. Let's see the quality. Got to make sure it's locked in at 1080p, baby. I will try the settings with an exception. I know some pros do like a stretch screen and stuff. We'll see what he's got. That's the one thing I don't think I'm gonna do. I don't think I'm gonna do a stretch screen if he does it. I heard before that he didn't do it, but we'll see.
Let's get it. So to start,
hold on, let's see.
What's up, Flex Gang? It's Tiggy here. These are my PUBG settings, so you guys can learn to dominate like me. Let's get it.
Yeah. That's what I just said. We're gonna dominate. Let's go.
So to start you guys off, we're just gonna run through my launch options. Very simple, Korean rating. This basically sets the game to run in the Korean rating version of the game, but you don't have to change your game language to Korean. What this does.
Okay. I want to hear him explain what he says it does, and then I'll tell you about it.
Is it deletes dead bodies from your game. I used to play without this because I thought that dead bodies were valuable information, but what ended up happening to me in a real competition is I saw a dead body rolling down a hill. I thought it was an alive guy. I called him out to my team, and then we made a bad play and we lost a game, and it actually cost us it was in the weekly survival, grand survival thing, so it cost us big time and I was pretty upset. So from then on, always Korean rating in every tournament. It's very helpful. Basically, if you see something, you shoot it. It's very quick and easy to access this. You just
okay, so it's removing the dead bodies. Doesn't it also turn the Molotov fire, and like any of the fire is green? Isn't that what it does? I'm pretty sure that's what it does. Like if you ever watch anybody and you know they're throwing Molotovs everywhere, and any of the fire, might even be blood too, all turns green. So the bodies disappear. That is good. That is interesting because you guys have seen me shoot dead bodies before. So when you get into something like this, for someone playing professionally, yeah, a dead body disappearing is very important. I mean, not even just from what Tig just said about thinking they spotted an enemy, but it was a body rolling down a hill. I mean, sometimes you're in a spot and literally you shoot the dead body because you think it's a prone person. We joke about it all the time. I'm like, I'm shooting this guy right here. I'm like, oh no, it's a dead body. So that's interesting. I almost wonder if it would be a good idea for PUBG to implement a comp setting, right? Where you set on the comp setting and it makes the bodies disappear, but the Molotovs still look like normal and the blood still looks like normal. Because personally, I don't know if I'd want to play where all the molly and all the blood is green. Personally.
You just right click your game, click properties, and then type in here Korean rating, no spaces. I also have my Steam overlay disabled because I just assume that it's going to somehow impact my FPS if I have an overlay on. So yeah, even though the effect of it is minimal, I'm skeptical. If I'm trying to squeeze out all the drops of FPS I can get, then.
So he makes a good point, because I'm assuming a lot of these settings are strictly based on performance, right? Maximum FPS. At least when I used to play a lot more Counter-Strike, that was what it was all about. The higher the FPS, the better. That was it. Steam overlay in game. I don't think I have that on myself right now.
Gonna disable that. All right, so now that we're in PUBG, we can open up our settings. This is where the fun begins. So I have recently...
Okay, before we get into this part, I I'm going to try the settings, okay? First of all. But the thing is that I'm curious to see if the game is going to look like a potato. Like if it looks like Play-Doh, right? I'm curious to see the difference because right now I pretty much run everything on ultra, right?
Switched to 1728 by 1080p. I made a prior video explaining why I thought 1920 was better, but honestly, after a lot of revision, I think 1728 is better for competition play. This is basically because the lower render quality at the same distance. Like if you play 1920 and you play 1728, 1728 will still have that potato quality render, even if you're standing the same distance away from an object on 1920. So it affects the way that like trees render, buildings render at the same distance, and it kind of gives you a graphical advantage in that you can see through some objects, or it's also just very visually simple. It doesn't help with.
Wait, so playing with the stretch screen has nothing to do with making the models and stuff bigger. It makes it so that whatever you're looking at from a similar distance, making it look more Play-Doh-y so that you can spot enemies better. I'm curious to know, outside of professionals, how many people play with the stretch res. That's crazy. I mean, I said I didn't want to try this, but I might have to. Just to see it, just to see how it is. You know? Like let's just do it, see how it feels, right?
Recoil in any way, shape, or form, and honestly, I think it's a detriment to things like DMRs, but it's definitely helpful when it comes to spotting enemies, and that's.
So is it a detriment to DMRs because when you're shooting with the DMR, it's going to be bouncing more because you're stretching the screen further?
Honestly, the most important thing is. So yeah, 1728 by 1080, I've been running that. Alternatively, you could run 1920 by 1200. That is also a 1610 res. I prefer 1728. I think the image quality is just sharper. Secondly, if you have a 1440p monitor, the equivalent resolution for you that you'll make in your NVIDIA control panel is 2304 by 1440. So yeah, if you have a 1440p monitor, make sure you run that 2304 by 1440.
Okay, I don't have a 1440p monitor.
Unlimited because I like high FPS. Some pro players like to limit their FPS, but I don't think it's very intelligent. I mean, if I'm in a competition, I want the most FPS at any given moment. I know some.
Okay, so I also have it on ultimate or unlimited, okay? So I have my FPS uncapped. Now, I used to cap it back when I actually ran G-Sync at the same time. And the reason why is because G-Sync is syncing your monitor's refresh rate with your frames. And if your frames start to bounce above what your monitor's refresh rate is, I was getting this massive choppiness in the game. So on my old monitor, I had the 144 hertz Asus ROG Swift 27-inch monitor, and I capped my FPS at 140 because it was 144 hertz. And if my frames ever got above 144 with G-Sync on, it really made my game choppy. So then when I got this new computer and I have a new monitor, a 360 hertz G-Sync Asus ROG monitor, 24-inch, I capped my FPS at the 360, but it still was kind of choppy. So I turned off G-Sync and now I just run unlimited as well.
Some people limit their FPS around like 130 because that's what they average in comp, and then they practice. I just don't think it's worth it. In late game circles in comp, you can actually get really good FPS, upwards of 200. Brightness, I run 100.
And the thing is, end game, if you get any type of stutter, right? You're in an end game situation and you're trying to clutch it out, or you're trying to help your team get to a certain position or something. Any little lag spikes towards the end of the game could cost you. I mean, that can be applied anytime during the game, right? But I mean, the crucial moments of whether you win or lose at the very end of a game. I mean, he makes a really good point there.
Because I think that it just gives me the clearest image. I've experimented with brightness a lot, and
what is my brightness? I
find myself going back to 100. The way that this game works is the middle of your screen is actually the brightest, and it gets darker like
Wait a second.
Radially. So the edges of your screen, the corners of your screen, are substantially darker than the middle.
What? Is that true? The edges are darker than the center? Dude, I didn't know that. Well, I don't know. That's interesting. If that is true, that is extremely interesting. My brightness has been at 50 or 51 or something, and I used to have it at 100, but now it's like at 51, 50. And I was using my monitor to turn up the brightness with the monitor, because a while ago I thought that when you had your brightness all the way up, it blended a lot of the colors and it made it harder to spot people.
It's kind of weird in that regard, but I find that running 100 brightness negates that effect a lot, that VIG. So always on 100 brightness for me. Moving into the advanced settings, it's very simple. I'm a very simple guy. Literally everything very low. I've experimented with things like textures on medium. This is
oh my gosh. Okay, so here's a huge difference, chat. All right. Tig's running everything on very low. I have everything pretty much on ultra. We are like on polar opposite ends. Okay. Interesting.
is good because it makes grass thin. So if you're ridge peaking on a wrangle, you can see through the grass very easily.
Whoa, 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 whoa. What is he saying right here?
Like textures on medium. This is good because it makes grass thin. So if you're ridge peaking on a wrangle, you can see through the grass very easily. But I just always find myself coming back to very low again, because I find that there's a tiny amount of input lag when I run medium. It's noticeable to me. And secondly, I am way better at reacting fast to things if it's visually simple. So when I have very low textures, if I have a wall and a player standing in front of it, that player will contrast really well and I can react to them especially fast.
Wow. Okay. So that makes sense. So he's talking about when he's weaving in and out of buildings or peeking windows and trying to identify players, they are going to stick out very easily next to a building that has low textures. But what he's also saying was if you have the textures set to medium, the grass is thinner. That's crazy. But he's getting a little bit more input lag with it up at that level. Now, the whole idea with being a professional gamer is to minimize all that, right? You want to maximize your frames and minimize your input lag.
If I run medium textures, there's just a lot more definition and I'm not able to react as fast as I possibly could. So that's why I'm always running very low textures.
Yeah, because the world just looks so much better, right? When you're playing on the higher graphics, you're running around and you're like, man, it just looks great out here. Everything looks beautiful. And then you miss the guy laying prone in the grass because the grass was too fat. You couldn't see through it.
In the middle ground, running just low textures is a good compromise. I've been considering doing that recently. I noticed a couple other pro players like Lil Ghost from 17 are doing that. So don't be surprised if you see me trying that out soon. Yeah, for now, just very low. You may see some of the Chinese pro players running medium or high view distance. I believe that this is because it makes guns spawn in faster while you're parachuting. So if you're in a hot drop and you're parachuting towards school and the gun doesn't render in for like an extra 2 seconds after you land, you're gonna die. They run higher view distance while they're playing public games, I believe, so that those hot drops, they can get the gun first.
Okay.
I think running pretty much any other setting.
That is good. Okay, so these must be his pro settings, right? Because then I'm assuming when he's playing pubs, he goes in and he turns the view distance all the way up, right? Because when you're playing in pubs, you want to drop in and you want to get that loot faster than anybody else, right? In the pro scene, for those that don't know, most of the teams have established landing areas, right? To where when you're going to land, like this team's going to land over here and this team's going to land over here. And when you do that, you're not really competing to try to get the gun first, right? So
is a detriment to your FPS. You can make the game look pretty smooth without having to turn anti-aliasing on, because anti-aliasing will give you a decent performance hit. So yeah, I would just recommend everything very low and then only adjust your textures, if anything at all. Rather than adjusting sharpening game, you're better off adjusting the sharpness on your monitor.
Wait, did he go over anti-aliasing?
Recommend everything very low and then only adjust your textures, if anything at all. Rather than adjusting sharpening game, you're
So, okay, well, the anti-aliasing is interesting to me because Wacky Jackie also did a video on the anti-aliasing. So I see Tig has his all the way down, all the way low, but Wacky prefers it to be a little higher. And I think he said that the reason why is because if it's higher, it helps you see through certain obstacles, like let's say fences or something. If someone's running behind that fence, with anti-aliasing up higher, you can see people running behind that fence through the spokes of it much easier. But if it's turned all the way low, they blend in. So I don't know. That'd be interesting to see if the performance increase actually would impact that.
Better off adjusting the sharpness on your monitor, because sharpening game actually takes up some graphics performance, I believe. When I was running it for like a year and then I eventually turned it off, I felt like my FPS and input lag was immediately better. And that's just my experience. I'm not 1,000% sure of the stats, but I'm 99% sure that disabled is best. I run.
Yeah, I think so too. And he does make a point with the monitor, but there's also another setting I think that you can do in your NVIDIA control panel that can help with the sharpening. I'm not an expert, but
quite high sharpness on my monitor to compensate. I also think it helps you see people through smokes a little bit. Like if someone's on the edge of a smoke, if you have a really sharp game, it makes them contrast well. So definitely a big fan of having a sharp game. I just would not recommend using sharpening game. And then DirectX 11 mode, I just have it on enhanced for the best FPS. I think that's pretty much standard. Everyone's going to be running DirectX 11 enhanced.
Everyone, dude, I've been running regular DirectX 11. I'm gonna have to upgrade to enhanced, Chad. I'm gonna try it out. We're gonna try it out.
My FOV is 95 at the moment, but this actually bounces around a lot. I change it like every other day, depending on my.
Mine's been at 94.
Coming up on tournament time, you're gonna have to set it on something and forget, fire and forget. And it's funny because when I play public games, I think 95 is optimal, and I'm in those hot drops, I'm in those CQC situations. It's really important that I can flick around and be aware of the sides of my screen. But I think that when it comes to competition play, 95 is actually optimal. It's more about spotting people who are ridge peaking, spotting people far away, reacting to people quickly, and 95 really helps me achieve that. So come tournament time, I will definitely be on 95. But yeah, I like pubbing on 95. Honestly, if I didn't play tournaments, I'd probably play 103 all the time, just because it looks fancy, it's a good time. If you play...
So the field of view, basically, you know, if you have it lower, it looks like you're more zoomed in. So... you know, when you're trying to make quick plays and transfer between targets, having that lower FOV helps out a lot. But you don't see as much, right? Because it's almost like you're just zooming in a little bit, right?
Play native res, it's obviously way easier to spot people, so you can play with higher FOV. You can play 97, 98. That's completely up to you. But yeah, if you play native res, don't feel afraid of turning your FOV up a bit, because your game has so much clarity, it's easy to spot things anyway. Moving on to the next tab, which is audio. This is mostly preference. I actually prefer to have a quieter game because I think that you get shot at and it's really loud.
Wait, is there things in PUBG chat that are loud? I like to have a quieter game. Is PUBG loud? Oh my gosh, he plays it at 49 or 50 master volume. Mine's all the way up, man. That's probably why I'm going deaf.
Actually, as a human, loud things scare us, you know. I think that is going to inhibit my...
No. Loud things scare us? Chat, you get scared from loud things?
Ability to make the most important decision in that moment. And I think that that's underrated. A lot of PUBG players, they have their volume cranked up and you watch them when they get shot. I watch it on PUBG Report all the time. They get shot and their crosshair will go because you can see that they're shaking. So
how about this? You're playing, you get shot. Oh, there's a guy there.
Yeah, I actually prefer to have a quiet game. This is where having nice earbuds comes in.
Happens all the time.
Handy. I don't need a loud game to hear footsteps well. Those two things are super, super important for me. I do have quite nice earbuds, but honestly, there are earbuds that you can get out there for $60, $80, just as good in a home setting. I have these nice earbuds for the noise cancellation for LAN, but I wouldn't recommend actually getting very expensive earbuds just to play online. Unless you're actually going to play in a tournament or a very loud setting, I would always recommend you don't splash out on earbuds. I would recommend at most spend $250 on a nice pair of earbuds. The only other setting I want to talk about.
Wait a second, $250? That's not going all out? Wait a second. How much are good earbuds? Obviously I don't use earbuds. I've got the over ears. How much are a nice set of earbuds going all out? I don't even know. I don't even know the market. Over $1,000? What? That's insane. I had no idea. Oh my gosh. All out would be $3K? No way, dude. Show me a brand that's got $2,400. That's almost as much as your computer. You could buy a computer for that much. Okay, so I would agree with him then. If there's no sense in getting earbuds like that unless you're competing professionally, making lots of money.
RTF. This is actually a funny setting because it simulates 3D audio. I remember talking to Deadmau5 and he told me to turn it off, and his reasoning sounded very solid. And I trusted him and I turned it off for like a couple days and I couldn't tell where anything was happening. It was extremely difficult. And I turned it back on and life became easy again.
Okay.
I would highly recommend it. It practically simulates 3D audio so you can tell when you're in an apartment which floor a player is on, or if they're...
Yeah, I totally agree. What he's saying right now is 100%. This HRTF, if you have this disabled, you are going to struggle to hear anybody where they're at. It'll just sound like it's all over the place. This HRTF is actually great. You're gonna want your Windows settings or your headphone settings set to stereo. So you want your headphone settings set to stereo, but you want your in-game to HRTF. Okay?
Shooting above or below you, it basically just really helps those city fight situations. I would always recommend you keep the setting enabled. I've played extensively with enabled and disabled, and I just got to say that my experience with enable, so much more precise, so much more accurate. People always ask me how I'm hearing these people. Just make sure you have HRTF on. That's my #1 piece of advice for audio. And then of course I use legacy sound effects because I'm a sucker for the M4.
Me too, man.
My mouse settings
That's
real
me.
quick, but
Legacy.
we're gonna do a deep dive into mouse and keyboard settings in a future video in the coming weeks. So stay post.
He said pause on this. All right, there's the sensitivities. Okay. Looks fairly similar. My general sense is higher than my other senses, but the aim sense is a little higher. I can't wait to see this video.
Let's move on to the gameplay settings.
All right.
So from the top, inventory character render, obviously you gotta see a drip when you open the inventory on stream all the time.
Oh yeah. Everyone knows when you look good, you play good. Gotta see it. It's in every single game, chat. Whether you're playing a first-person shooter, you're playing a MMO, you're playing an RPG, whatever it is, you gotta see yourself. If you don't look good, you're not gonna play good. You gotta see it.
New viewers come in, they're like, what's this guy wearing? I got big drip. It is what it is. So
that's right. That's right. And I got big legs. You can see it, right? We wear the whitey tighties.
But come tournament time, I do disable this because this will destroy your FPS. When you open your inventory, if that is enabled, your game probably loses 50 FPS. If you're really trying hard, sweating balls, disable it every time.
Sweating balls, disable this. It is true. It is true. Every time you go into your inventory, chat, if you have this enabled and you want to see how you look, it's going to thrash your FPS when you go into your inventory. It just is.
I'll actually apply that now because I played this weekend. Colorblind mode. This is interesting. Colorblind mode is interesting because with Korean rating, the blood color doesn't change. So really this comes down to which crosshair color you prefer on your DMRs and AR. In my experience, the normal colorblind mode actually has the best.
So what he just said was the blood doesn't change. If you're not in the Korean mode, the blood does change. And the reason for that is to help people who are colorblind see the blood spatter when they hit someone so that they know that they're doing damage, right? Long time ago, at least a couple years ago, in PUBG, they used to, it was really hard to see blood. So you could almost not even tell. It was when they changed how the blood looked. And when you hit someone, you couldn't even tell if they were hit or not. So you used to have to turn on the colorblind mode so the blood would come out pink. And then you'd be like, oh, I hit him, right? Because the blood blended in. But I think they have since fixed that. I'm actually on normal now. But people used to ask all the time, like, why are you in colorblind mode? And that was the original reason why.
Contrast. The red crosshair of the 4X and the green of the 3X basically gives you the easiest to DMR experience on both Miramar and Orang. So yeah, I will be running this for the days to come. I do explore a bit with Protonopia, but I generally find that I will lose my blue crosshair, especially on the 4X, in the sky or in smokes, and it's way harder to aim than with the normal. So I'm a big fan of the normal. When it comes to crosshair color, I use green. Basically, I read somewhere that green is the #1 color that stands out in our brain. Apparently we see it faster and we see it well. It's like the color that our brain is most receptive
Interesting.
to. So I just run
So this must be why the default Counter-Strike crosshair and most of the Counter-Strike players play with the green crosshair. I've been on the teal crosshair. I might have to try it. I might have to switch back to the green, chat. I think default it's gray. So
a green crosshair, all green crosshair, just so I can never lose track of it, really. I don't find it blends in with the Erangel green, to be honest. It actually stands out pretty well.
Whoa! Is it Erangel or Erangel? What is it?
Obviously preference though. Weapon slot HUD, you want this to be enabled because it basically lets you know which grenade you have in slot next to the minimap. Minimap dynamic zoom I actually keep disabled. This is so that when I'm parachuting into a place like school or hacienda, and I know that the edge of the minimap is 200 meters away from me, I can accurately parachute consistently. Because I know that from when I pull my parachute to when I land, if it's a level floor, it's about 200 meters. So I can put things at like 180 meters on my minimap and then land on it consistently. And that's actually how I parachute so well a lot of the time. Is
really?
I wait until I mark where I want to land.
I've noticed this whenever, oh my gosh. So I've noticed this, I've noticed this when either I'm zooming in on my map or if I'm looking around. Sometimes I notice it more in the custom games, but my mini map will get zoomed in and zoomed out randomly. That's a very good point that he makes. That the closer that you're getting to a certain spot, if your mini map is zooming, it could be tricky to keep track of the squares and how far away stuff is.
I'm parachuting in, I see
that's a good
marker
tip.
On the minimap is about 160 meters away from me, 180 meters, and then I just full shift down. That's why I keep the minimap dynamic zoom disabled, so I can have a consistent parachute strategy, and I would recommend you guys do the same. There's not a lot to be gained from using this. If you want a bigger minimap, you should bind the extended minimap to a accessible key. I use 6. Kill feed limit, you want this to be 10 because, I mean, you don't want to miss anything in the kill feed. Most important thing in the game. Honestly, it makes or breaks games. And in scrims, there's times where you will see 10 kills in the kill feed. It's hard to read them all, but there's no reason to not have this.
You gotta know who's in the game,
Interaction
chat.
target highlight is an interesting setting. I actually really enjoy it because it helps you see things through smoke. Like if I am on a car or something, or gonna pick up a gun, looking at something on the floor, I can see the highlight through smokes. And this is actually important because...
So I've always had this on enable, but I've always had this enabled, but now it makes sense why I should never turn it off.
It helps you identify exactly how like a car can be positioned. If I'm standing inside a smoke and I'm looking at a car, I can see the outline of the car roughly a little bit better, and I can gauge my position relative to the car pretty okay. So I think there's no real reason to have this disabled. It's easy turn on. Compass background, who cares? On-screen key guide, obviously disabled. Get that shit out of here. Oh my god, that is
whoa. Wait a second. The on-screen key guide? How am I supposed to know what my movement keys are and which key I need to use to shoot and to open my map?
thing. If I see anyone playing, like I tune into a Twitch stream and I see that thing on, I'm like, this must be their first day. The loot flash effect, I just want to glow.
That's so funny. He's like, if I go to someone's stream and they have that on, it must be their first day. It's like, what is the hotkey for it? Like Alt K? It's like, dude, get that out of there, man. I think the same thing. It's so funny.
Default, same as 2018. It's just what I'm used to. No real difference here. I find it hard to differentiate ammo types if it's on the pulse mode, so I just keep it on glow. In function, there's not really a lot to go over here. Free look interpolation, you should set to disable. By default, it's on enabled, and you want to disable it every time. Basically, what it does is when you alt look to the right or to the left, if you let go of alt, your aim will snap back straight. If it's enabled, your aim will slowly glide back straight. Meaning that if you're alt looking and you spot someone and then you let go of alt, your aim will go.
Wait a second. Okay. I just had a revelation, chat. I just had a revelation. Why? Because I've always thought that it was something messed up in a streamer's OBS settings that when they would alt look to the left or to the right, and then all of a sudden it looks like there's a glitch. That's like, boop. Like you look over one way or the other, and then all of a sudden it just snaps back to the front, and there looks like there's a glitch in whatever they're capturing of the game. But it's a setting, and it totally makes sense because if you see something and then you let go of the alt because you're running straight in a certain direction and you look left and you look right, and then you let go of it and it just snaps back forward. It's making you faster, right? It's important to have. I see that now, but now I didn't know about that setting. I'm learning, chat, just like everybody.
And then you can shoot at them, right? Compared to just snap, snap. So it just basically cuts out some of that animation time, and just leaving that disabled is ideal. Everything else is very easy. Auto reload enable. And
whoa! We were just talking about the auto reload too. Wait a second. We should have a discussion about the auto reload enable, because ever since Counter-Strike, I've always had my auto reload off. Because sometimes if you run your ammo all the way to the end, if your gun starts to reload, the animation can get you, right? You could get smoked by that. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, maybe the better that you're getting at the game, and then you just realize when you're out and then you're starting to reload, I mean, you could just switch to another gun. I don't know. That's interesting to me. I'm wondering to hear what people have to say about that.
And then just full auto for everything. So
yeah, I've got that full auto. Yeah.
You have to change your just auto replacing attachments here so that you can switch weapons easily. Super neat. And then basically you want to set your auto equip attachments, all of these settings, all three of these, to enable so that you can easily switch out weapons.
Okay, I've got all that on already. Yep.
And then everything else doesn't really matter.
So that right here, this auto equip and auto switch attachments, this is what a lot of people come in and ask all the time, like, hey Bob, you found a new gun. When you swap to that new gun, how did all the attachments just switch? Well, that's how. These are the settings right here. So there's one that this is the auto replace attachments, which I believe is when you take a new gun, it auto swaps all of the attachments that you had on your previous gun to the new gun. The auto equip attachments with the interaction key is when the items are on the ground, you loot them and they automatically go to your gun. So you have to keep going to your inventory.
Situations, it's just very handy. And then everything else doesn't really matter except these bottom three. Additional action queuing basically cuts out some animation time and makes sure that you don't end up with any janky situations where you press buttons and then it doesn't go through. It basically just helps the game feel more fluid.
Keep action queuing online.
Drop shots, reload,
keep that enabled.
It's just really good. So I would always run this on enable. It was bugged for a while where your guns would just randomly start shooting, but I believe that's fixed. I haven't had any issues for a while, so I definitely would recommend it to be enabled. Highlight recommended ammo and equipment, I would 100% recommend to be on. This is because I'm scrimming all the time and I'm running around, I'm looting. I see a first aid kit. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go loot that. I run up to it, and there's a flash hider inside of it. There's an 8x inside of it. There's
Okay. It's funny because I was just talking to Matthias about this the other day, and hilarious enough, he was like, you don't have that turned on? And I was like, no. And I said, well, why? I already know what loot that I need and what loot that I want, and I can see everything on the ground already that I need. And the more I think about it, the more I do realize that sometimes within a first aid or within a vest, like a 2 vest on the ground, there's attachments and stuff that are like inside of it that you can't see unless you hit tab over the top of it, right? I guess I was just more annoyed that there's these little arrows and highlights in the game on the ground. But maybe I just need to get used to it, chat. Maybe I just need to do it and get used to it because it's just the smarter thing, makes it more efficient, makes you better at looting so that you don't, you don't spend all your time looting. And that's coming from the loot master, right? I see someone says, I don't F loot though. Yeah, but you don't need to F loot. It basically, it's just showing you on the ground visually that there's something there that you could use, like a scope or attachments. So like you might glance from a distance and say, oh, that just looks like a vest, but it'll highlight something that you need.
There's something inside of it that I would never have seen because
okay, there you go.
That's how
he's
works.
saying it right. Yeah.
Spawns things inside of each other. You know, it's like you run up to a first aid kit, you press F on it, and you're like, oh, I have a Uzi stock in my inventory, right? So this highlight recommended ammo and equipment basically helps you see those attachments that are buried underneath stuff. And
okay,
I would
yeah,
highly recommend
exactly.
that it's enabled. There's no reason to not have it on. So those are my PUBG settings, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. And if you have any questions, just leave it in the comments below. I'll be responding to them all day, every day, making sure that
all right, great.
You guys are staying well equipped. You know, can't be having the flex gang out there repping bad gameplay. Hopefully you guys start slaying. We'll see you guys next time.
We're going to try to slay, chat. All right. So this video is on Tig's channel if you guys want to go and check the video out yourself, okay? The video, in my opinion, was very well done. So, yeah, make sure you guys go and show Tig some love on YouTube.